are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today we have another amazing show line for y'all. We have a special guest. She is a book author. She's an entrepreneur. She's a blogger, a YouTuber. She's an author. We're going to talk about her book that you can get on Amazon, His Mortgage Peace. But we're going to learn a little bit more about her and her story. We have Stephane Weeks, and that's a pretty cool name. Stephane Weeks is joining us today. First and foremost, I want to say welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I'm doing well today.
I appreciate you having time to be on today. You can also visit her website, stephaneweeks.com. And before we dive into your book, we'll say that for later. Introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Stephane Weeks, as you mentioned, and I've been doing mortgages for 20 years now. And I always think it's really funny how things happen and you think they suck, and then you realize later why they happened. So before I started being a mortgage loan officer, I actually bought my first house at 18 and then bought 2 other houses before I became a loan officer. And those 3 purchases were complete nightmares.
What inspired you to keep going? Because it sounds like it's definitely not easy. That's obvious. But what is it that makes you want to keep doing what you do?
Well, I felt like, and I still feel like it's quite simple. You know, most people aren't answering their phone, and that's been the same thing since I bought my first house at 18. And most people don't call back. Most loan officers are really wanting to avoid difficult conversations, and we have to have a lot of difficult conversations as loan officers. I mean, if you're denied, right, that really sucks, but you don't need to hide from that. You need to talk about that. But also, I feel like our big thing is our numbers, right? Like, what do we have if we don't have our numbers? And part of the problem and the nightmares with my own purchases were such inaccurate estimates. And, you know, one of my first, this was the third purchase actually. And I'm pregnant. My other house is sold. I'm literally driving to the closing, and they're like, okay, well, you know, you need $7,000. And keep in mind, I had put down a 10% deposit to cover down payment and closing and prepaids. And I asked multiple times through the process, how much money do I need? Oh, you're good. And then I'm driving there and you need an extra $7,000. I mean, some of those things were just very, very unacceptable to me. And I thought, I have to make a change. I have to get in this business and make it better, because it's not that hard to communicate.
Now, when you bought your first home, I mean, you were very young when you did that. So you know what you're doing with this experience. Mm-hmm. On your website, you have a home buyer 101 course. Mm-hmm. What's some of the things that first-time home buyers should know, and some of the things that you cover inside your course?
Just talking about, you know, why we ask for certain documents, how it can be frustrating, some of the requests, making some explanations of why it exists, things to avoid, things to put together to make sure that you get an approved loan and not a denied loan, things to watch out for, things to ask for. It's very, very, very step by step in each and every process, all the way down to, you know, how do you submit your documents? What's the best way to submit your documents to the loan officer?
And it's very detailed. Like you said, it's like 6 modules plus closing thoughts. You are really helping a lot of people. When someone is wanting to learn from you personally, is there any way that they can get one-on-one coaching with you as well?
I haven't actually offered that lately. I did coach, but it wasn't consumers though. I've actually coached loan officers across the country, and I haven't in a while, but I'd be open to it. It's, you know, no one can lose anything by giving me a call.
As a busy entrepreneur with all the things you do, what's some of the ways that you keep each part of your business from suffering from one having too much time with the other?
Well, I'm not going to say that it was a good thing, but for the course, I worked on that after hours, like completely. Like some nights I stayed up and never went to sleep, putting that course together. That way my daytime business wasn't affected. And for the book, I kept saying, I'm answering a lot of the same questions over and over again. There must be a book out for this. And I searched and searched, and there were some books, but some of them were like, well, this is how you calculate PMI. Well, I mean, nobody gives a crap about that. They want to know, why do you want this document? Why do you need all pages? Why am I getting denied when I have a job? Things like that. And so with the book, I kept saying, I want to write it. And it just wasn't happening. So I don't remember what year it was now, but I said, you know what? This is happening. I am going to start January 1st, and I'm going to do at least 2 hours every single week, something to advance this book. And literally less than 18 months later, it was published.
And right now we're talking to Stephanie Weeks. You can go to her website, stephanieweeks.com, and mention your book, Mortgage Peace, a proven formula for a smooth on-time closing. I mean, you got tons of reviews. So we let people go to Amazon and check those reviews out. But you personally, when you released this book to educate people to have a smooth on-time closing, I mean, it sounds like you had some pretty interesting experiences. So what's some experiences you had personally that allowed you to add that value for those readers?
One example was talking about an interest rate lock. We purchased a lot after that first house, and we were building a house. I thought I was doing the best thing by calling around probably 30 different people, just hanging up and calling, what's your rate? What's your rate? What's your rate? Well, I found someone, I go with this person. She never explained a rate lock and how that works, and that I wasn't locked in until 30 days from the completion of my home, which was almost a year after that loan application was done and that rate was quoted. At that time, good interest rates for great credit and everything were 6.8. By the time the house was done and she was ready to lock me in, the rates were 8%. And I almost couldn't afford the house. I just spent a year, literally blood, sweat, and tears building. Like I would go to work from 8 to 5, go to school from 6 to 9, go to this house and literally like hang, put tile in and hang wallpaper and like, literally do it to almost not even be able to move into it because someone was incompetent enough to just have a communicatory, conversation.
You've been able to be recognized. So tell us all just a little bit about your experience being recognized, bid awards, and just reaching some accomplishments with your own business.
So for the book, it's been really exciting. I didn't even ever think that it could help real estate agents, but it actually turns out that it's helping them as well, because they're kind of understanding more of the process also, which allows them to be better advocates for their customers as well. And so I've got great reviews, like you said, on the books. I was on the international bestseller list for the book. And for the last several years, with the exception of like the last year, I was in the top 1% in the nation for loan officers out of over 350, I think, 1,000 loan officers. I was in the top 1% consistently for production. For the amount of loans that I do. And I've also been recognized in the Scotsman Guide for top originators. And I've been interviewed on the news a bunch of times also.
When you look at the business side of how you are helping people who everyone needs help at some point during this process. So what's a good checklist for someone who is considering to buying their first home? What was some of the things they should keep in mind and make sure that they're not rushing the process?
I think honestly, and I'm not just saying this, for a sale, truly I'm not, because it's not about the money for that part, for the course and the book. It's really not about the money. It doesn't make a lot of money, even if I sell a lot. I make money by doing loans, but really they're both very, very helpful in guiding step by step. I think one of the first things, aside from the book and the course that someone could do would be to ask a couple of friends and relatives for references of loan officers. Make the calls. Let's say maybe you get 3 or 4 names, and then see who you feel the most comfortable with. Like go with your gut, okay? And then from there, whether you think you're ready next month or in 2 years, go ahead and do a loan application. Because the good loan officers out there will definitely say, look, you're great, you're ready, or you're not ready, but here's the 5 things you need to do before you come back to me so that it's a no for now and not a no forever. So I feel like a lot of people, they'll go around with the real estate agent and they really enjoy, looking at the houses. I mean, I do too. It's fun, right? And you're having visions and picturing your furniture and things like that. But when it comes time to the loan officer, that's when a lot of people just don't end up taking that next step because it's really scary. I mean, it's like we're asking you to get naked in front of 50 people. Like we're all up in all of your business, but it's not as scary as it seems. So you really want to rip off that Band-Aid, because I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and say, well, I waited 3 months because I paid off all my credit cards. And I'm like, well, that's really awesome, but now you're not approved because of this other reason. Or, I did this, that, and the other, and they just did what they thought was right. And it may have been right, generally speaking, but it wasn't right for their situation. When you're doing a loan and working with a loan officer, it's truly like blood work. Like no 2 loans are the same. It's like snowflakes. Like they are not duplicates. They're so unique. And so you really need that one-on-one guidance of what to do if you're not quite ready. So you get the right steps under your belt and you don't go in the total wrong direction.
Once again, talking to our guest today, Stephanie Weeks, and go to her website, stephanieweeks.com. And you also get her book on Amazon, Mortgage Peace. You touch on the part of credit score. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, That's like a hot topic too. What's some of the things people should consider in, checking the credit and getting that together before they even consider the whole process?
This is actually a hot button for me because I have this conversation 5 times a day. People call and they say, I want to apply. My credit score is a 640 and I pull their credit and it's a 580. And I had to have the whole conversation that explains there are hundreds of credit score models. And so you don't know what all these free apps or your bank or your credit card, what model they're showing you. And it is almost never the model that a mortgage lender is going to pull. And so there's always a difference there. It's just like if you're in high school and the high school down the street has a 10-point grading scale and your school has a 6. Well, the other school doesn't really care at all what grading scale the other school has, right? They go by their own grading scale. So I think that those apps have been really good and helpful in helping you find if something's wrong. Like, well, that account's really closed and it shows open, or oh my gosh, that's not my credit card. Who stole my identity? Those things have been really, really positively impacted by these apps, but they're not the end all be all. And they're definitely not your reference for credit score, but they are good to keep an eye on your credit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And if someone wants to do this on their own, what's some of the resources that off the top of your head that they can, start right away and investigate that themselves? Or do you recommend going with someone that's professional?
I think if you're really, really, really nervous and you don't want to start with the professional, go to annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com. Once a year, you're entitled to a copy of all 3 credit bureaus absolutely for free. The way that you can kind of end up paying is if you say, well, I want the credit score. They're going to charge you for that. But really, if you're just getting started, don't worry about the credit score. Just get those 3 reports, go over them with a fine-tooth comb. Like, is your employment right? Are your addresses right? Like, an address might show up on your credit that's your grandma's house you never lived at. Like, that happens all the time. The beautiful thing about this website and these reports, it's going to tell you, even though it doesn't show you the score, is your score good, great, average, bad, why it's good, bad, what you can do to make it better. It is such a great resource that most people don't know about. So if you pull that and it's like your credit's bad and you got to fix these things, well, there you go. Start on those things and don't focus on the score just yet if you don't want to go to the professional first.
Speaking of that, you also have awesome content on mortgage, education, and finance on your YouTube channel. Share us a little bit about your YouTube channel. How long have you had it? And also what's some of the type of videos you put up there?
2020, I believe that was when I either dropped my first video or I just at least pressed to go on the channel. And it's been really a lot of fun because I love the education piece of my job so much. And so it's been fun to go and post the different videos. And I've got, I think it's over 200 videos at this point. And it's anything from credit score, discount points, different loan types, how to not get denied for a loan. Why is a condo different? Those are just some of the things that kind of come to mind. But I really, again, wanted to find a resource that people could go to for free and get information that would really make sense, because I don't know if I really understood what I was doing, but what has happened and what a lot of people have told me is that I really can break it down into layman's terms, and I don't, talk anybody's over anyone's head. And I really explain what's going on in a way that people can truly understand, that I'm not talking at them, I'm talking to them. And I think that's been very helpful in helping to educate people. And I think that that's working, because even people that come to me and unfortunately I have to deny their loan, they still refer me other people. So I'm glad to know that that content is helping people out there, because mortgage or buying a house is one of the biggest purchases that most people are ever going to make. And the thing that really bothers me, and I haven't looked this stat up in at least a couple of years, but for several years, the stat was that on average, 21 million people per year apply for mortgages, and only 7 million mortgages close. And I don't think it's because that many people don't qualify or it's that hard to qualify. I think it's because there is lack of information, lack of education, and lack of someone saying, well, ask these questions, right? Because if loan officers are human, okay, and we work on commission, like we want to close your loan. We genuinely have a vested interest to close your loan. But we are, again, like I said, we're also human. So we could miss something. So what if someone denies a loan and they missed a second job that was acceptable or something like that? Well, if the customer doesn't know or the borrower doesn't know to ask certain questions, then they fall into that category of the loan that never closes. And it's just because, they were human. They didn't know what to ask. The loan officer was human. They made a mistake. So it really comes down to education is what my opinion is on that.
And you as a mortgage lender, man, what has been the most rewarding part of your career?
Well, I would say I do love doing the loans. I'm loving them less these days, to be honest with you. But I really, truly, truly love, and I still unbelievably love just the education piece of it. Because, I came from humble beginnings. Like my parents didn't have any money. Like I knew I couldn't even ask my mom for $5. So I had to figure out a different way to make it work. And I had to educate myself because no one taught me these things. I even went to college and I have a degree. I have multiple degrees, but I didn't even learn it from there. I just learned it by being self-taught and kind of taking my experiences that really sucked, for lack of a better way to say it, and kind of breaking it down and saying, okay, what was wrong with this and what could have been done different? And now how can I take this bad experience to make what I do and make the process that I use different to where the next person doesn't have that bad experience?
Well, once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Stephanie Weeks. Go to her website, stephanieweeks.com. Also, get her book, Mortgage Peace, on Amazon. Last thing for you, you also are a cancer survivor. Tell us how that may impact not just with your business, but you as an individual.
It really makes you think about everything and think about what you want to do, and think about, if someone asks you to do something and you used to say yes out of obligation, but you didn't want to, or maybe you couldn't do it. Well, once a diagnosis like cancer happens to you, you realize it's not a bad thing to put yourself first. Like if you can't do it, then don't commit to it. Don't feel obligated, because you have to put yourself first. Because all these people that I've helped over these years and all the people that I plan to help in the rest of my life, I can't help those people if I die because I'm not taking care of myself first. And I think that's one of the difficulties of being a loan officer, is that, I don't know if it's on a chart somewhere, but it's got to be one of the most stressful, high intense jobs that exist, because 24/7 deals are being made, and 24/7 people need your answers, your numbers, your estimates. Doesn't matter if you're on a boat with your family, they need closing cost quotes. It doesn't matter if you're at the movie with your friends, they need a pre-approval letter and they want it yesterday. So it's really difficult and then rewarding at the same time. But I think you have to set some type of healthy boundaries. And if there's any loan officers or new loan officers listening to this, then I hope that they can take that away and really learn from that. And if there are a lot of existing or, experienced loan officers listening to this, even if they're not implementing it, they know that I'm 100% right. Like, it can be a very unhealthy career choice. So you've got to find a way to find the balance and be okay that sometimes you might lose a deal. But if you want to relax on Sunday afternoon and you just mentally can't take that phone call, then don't do it, because you got to protect yourself first.
As a woman entrepreneur, what was some of the advice you would give to those out there who are striving to be their own boss?
I would say that don't give up, because, I've done multiple things that have failed along, with like being a loan officer, but I've done like different little things here and there, or invested in businesses, or like had a different idea and kind of, did little businesses around lending. And there've been things that have failed, like for sure. But if I had given up, then I wouldn't be able to help other people. Right. And if I had given up, which there are so many times, like I've been cursed out, yelled at, talked down to, and, just made bad business decisions. But I think that it's not for the faint of heart. And so remember I told you at the beginning of this that there were 3 purchases that were really terrible. So it's kind of funny when I'm about to quote one of the loan officers from one of those transactions, their advice that has stuck with me to this day. And I think it's really good to end on this note. Starting any business, and especially, being a loan officer, is just like starting a business. If you are not going to be willing to work for free for the first couple of years, then don't get started. Because what happens is people think it's all going to be great, easy. You build it, they're going to come. It doesn't work like that. And so a lot of people quit just before it's finally about to pay off. So for those first 2 years, I kept that in my mind. Like, okay, this is what he told me, and I believe it to be true. So I'm going to follow this. And it was probably about 1.5 years in when I finally started seeing the results, because when you're an entrepreneur and or a loan officer, you spend money to make money. So in that first year, like, not only did I not make money, I lost money, because I still had to take people to lunch, and I still had to do open houses, and I still had to do advertising and marketing and things like that. So I think that anything is possible for anyone who has the drive and determination to do so. And if you want to be an entrepreneur and you really feel that in your heart, then you should really move forward with that. But just make sure you prepare yourself with some thick skin.
Some good words, Stephanie. So once again, listeners, I'm Refocused Radio, talking to Stephanie Weeks. Go to her website, stephanieweeks.com. What's a call to action you want our audience to take for you?
Well, they can get the course at my website. They can get the book on Amazon. And if they want to reach out for help with lending or just help with advice, I have a lot of loan officers that I'll call that are kind of new. And I'm happy to talk with them as well. Or people who are looking at investing, and I'll talk with them, and lots of other examples. So I'm at 985-300-LOAN.
Well, once again, I want to say thanks to you, Stephanie Weeks, taking the time for talking to us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.